Welcome to week one of Parenting Q&A. Essentially what we are going to do is take your questions and answer them from a biblical perspective. My name is Larry Underwood. I'm the Family Ministry Director here at First Presbyterian Church in downtown Bradenton, Florida. What we did over the last couple of weeks is fielded some questions via email. We had several come in already. Hopefully we will have more come in. And as we go through this series, we will answer those questions. Parenting is not the easiest thing in the world, and as hard as we try as parents to do the right things, it doesn't always turn out the way we want it to turn out, and we always end up with a ton of questions. There are people that kind of go through life and they assume that parenting is one of these things that it's, you have a baby and then you have a primary school kid and a middle schooler and a high school, and then you check it off a list and you're kind of done. But if you've got adult children, you understand that parenting is this lifelong process and that you're going to see patterns continue not only through your adult children but into your grandchildren. And it's at that point in life that you start to see things for what they actually are. Hopefully throughout this series we'll realize that there are different types of parents, there's different approaches to parenting, and there are a lot of things that we can do as parents to change not only ourselves but the outcome for our children and break some of these generational problems that we may even have experienced in our own families. The question for this week is a fairly simple one, and it revolves around the fact that it's 2020 and it's difficult to even go to a church, and a lot of churches don't have children's programming. Schools are kind of in limbo, so to speak. It's summertime right now as I'm recording, but we're watching the debate unfold as to how and when going back to school, what that looks like, and all of those things. And so the question was this. It was really a simple question. How do I keep my children interested in church when I can't actually go to church? Let me say that question again. How can I keep my kids interested in church when I cannot go to church? Well, in 2020, it's hard to count our blessings because not everything seems like a blessing, but this might be one of the things that is, especially if you are a Christ-following parent, the fact that you have more of an emphasis on at home maybe for studies, and at home as far as talking about God and talking about the gospel and talking about the Bible, that could be a blessing. We're going to launch our series in Deuteronomy chapter 6. And in Deuteronomy chapter 6, we have a few verses that I think speak to this and underscore the importance of talking about God at home. Here are those verses. We'll pick up in verse 4. Hear, O Israel, the Lord is our God, the Lord alone, and you must love the Lord your God with all your heart, all your soul, and all your strength. Just that verse alone sounds like a great parent. Verse 6. And you must commit yourselves wholeheartedly to these commands I'm giving you today. Repeat them again and again to your children. Interesting. Talk about them when you're at home and when you're away on a journey, when you're lying down, right before bed, and when you're getting up again, first thing in the morning. Tie them to your hands as a reminder. Wear them on your forehead. Write them on the doorposts of your house and on your gates. We'll stop there, but I kind of think you get the point that our love for the Lord and our fear of the Lord, it begins at home. And educating our children about God and godly things and the gospel and getting them excited about Jesus, that begins at home. Historically, for the past, as long as I can remember, we've had this struggle where parents assume that they need to send their kids to school to learn something, and they need to send their kids to church for the church to somehow fix them, morally or spiritually. And the emphasis that all of that actually begins at home and is reinforced at home is a huge point. So that is point number one. This starts at home. I've got a key statement for today, and here's the statement. Eternal truths are most effectively learned in the loving environment of a God-fearing home. interesting that we're saying this as we come off the heels of studying Ecclesiastes, where Solomon's, I guess his final thing is fear God and do what he says. And here in Deuteronomy, we've got this fantastic little snippet where it's basically saying, love God, fear God, talk about him at home. Interesting. So as parents, let's be the parents that do that. So in 2020, let's be the parents that regardless of when we can send our kids to a children's program or a children's camp, or when we can actually send them back to school for classroom education, which all of those things I feel are very, very important, but let's be the parents that start at home, that reinforce these things at home, that talk about God at home, which is going to put us in a position of needing to know the answers to some questions, because face it, kids ask questions. As we continue through this series, I want more questions, and if you would be even willing to be interviewed, I would love to interview you. You can contact me through my church email address, larry@firstpresbradenton.com. Send those questions in, send in those inquiries, send your stories. The funnier the story, the more likely it is that I'll use it, because I like a good funny story. Anyway, thanks for watching. This was week 1 of Parenting Q&A. We'll see you next week.